Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the wonderfully grimy, oddly wholesome world of daily rituals in a medieval village. Forget knights in shining armor. Forget feasts in candlelit halls. You're waking up in a flea-ridden straw bed, smelling like last night's onions, and your biggest goal today is not dying of dysentery. Before we crawl into the muck of the Middle Ages, smash that like button if you enjoy time traveling without the inconvenience of the bubonic plague. Comment below where you're watching from and how long you think you'd survive in a world without coffee or deodorant. Now dim the lights, get cozy, preferably with a fur blanket and some stale bread, and let's open our eyes. In a village without clocks, clean socks, or toilet paper, you wake up. Not to an alarm clock, but to the sounds of a rooster screaming like it pays rent. Your bed? A wooden frame stuffed with straw. Your blanket, wool, itchy, slightly damp, smells like goat. Because it was a goat. And don't forget the bed bugs, or the cold. There's a reason people slept fully clothed. Layers weren't just for fashion. First ritual of the day, check if you're still alive. Second, pray you're not late to the communal bakehouse, because today's bread isn't going to make itself. Oh, and good luck brushing your teeth. With a twig. Yeah, a literal stick. Mint-flavored toothpaste won't be invented for another 800 years. Congratulations! You've survived dawn. Now let's ruin your back. Your morning chores include hauling water from the village well, unless it's frozen, feeding pigs who are louder than your ex on speakerphone, gathering eggs, assuming the chickens haven't been cursed. Witches are everywhere, remember? And don't forget mucking out the barn. It's exactly what it sounds like. Modern workout routines? Medieval villagers lived leg day. Fun fact, bathing? Maybe once a month. Maybe. If you were fancy. So that smell? That's you. That's everyone. Breakfast time. No Lucky Charms here. Just porridge. Cold. Made from barley. Maybe a bit of stale bread if you're lucky. Cheese if you haven't traded it for firewood. You eat by the hearth, surrounded by family, grandparents, siblings, possibly your neighbor's cousin who just never left. And this is when the real action begins. Village gossip. Who stole whose chicken? Who might be cursed? Who's suspiciously good at growing turnips? If Instagram existed, this would be your scroll time. Except it's verbal, judgmental, and happens over broth. All right, enough relaxing. Time to work or starve. You might be plowing the fields with oxen slower than your Wi-Fi, weaving cloth with fingers numb from cold, repairing the roof barefoot 12 feet up on wobbly wood. And if you're a kid, no Roblox, no naps. You're herding sheep or picking rocks from the fields? Women? Oh, you're grinding grain, brewing ale, cleaning everything, and raising a small army of future plague survivors. You work from sunup to sundown. No breaks, no PTO, just the sweet reward of survival. Oh, dinner time is where things get slightly more enjoyable. You all gather around the fire, sharing a stew that's been boiling since noon. Ingredients? Whatever didn't kill you last week. Evenings are for storytelling, playing simple instruments, maybe dancing if you're lucky. But beware, after dark, evil spirits roam. Or so says old Marta, who once claimed she turned a fox into a priest. Long story. And don't forget to secure your door with a wooden bar. Not from thieves, from wolves. And possibly Gerald, the creepy guy from the edge of town. The fire dims. You crawl back into your straw bed, scratching at flea bites and listening for rats. You made it. One more day done. No plague, no famine, no inquisitions. You thank God, the saints, and maybe even the goat that warmed your feet. It's the middle of the day now, and surprise, you're late for Mass, again. In medieval village life, religion wasn't just a Sunday affair, it was the operating system. Your thoughts, your chores, your menstrual cycle, all tracked by a church calendar thicker than your winter cloak. Feast days? Over 100 of them. Which sounds fun, until you realize fasting on bread and fish 40 days before Easter means zero bacon. Yeah, and bacon was life. You enter the church, stone walls cold, incense choking the air, and the priest giving a sermon in Latin. Hey, do you understand a word? Nope, but nod anyway. Smile, fear God, and don't slouch. Also, don't sit if you're poor. That's for nobles. You kneel on cold stone for hours while wondering if that weird cough of yours is a sin. Back at the village, someone's sick. Again. Maybe your neighbor. Maybe you. Maybe your entire family. Time to visit the local wise woman. She's 70 years old, owns a suspiciously large number of cats, and once cured a fever with boiled moss and a prayer to St. Apollonia. Your medicine, a stew of crushed nettles, chicken fat, and holy water applied to your armpits. Oh, and for headaches, tie a dead mole to your head. Yes, really. Witchcraft? Herbalism? Early science? No one knows. But if you feel better in 3 days, she's a miracle worker. If not, she might just float in the river. Yikes. Let's talk cleanliness. Now, you did bathe, sometimes. If you lived near a stream, or if your town had a bathhouse. But don't imagine steamy spa days. Imagine dunking yourself into brown water that's already been used by 3 other villagers. And a goat. Soap, animal fat and ashes. Toilet paper, moss, leaves, your left hand. And for dental hygiene, rinse with vinegar, or chew cloves if you're rich. Smell nice? Maybe, if your idea of nice is earthy with a hint of mildew. And let's not even talk about what happens if you have lice. Actually, no. Let's talk about it. You light a candle, hold it close to your head, and hope the heat draws them out. Suddenly, shampoo feels like a modern miracle, huh? Here's the deal. If you're a woman in the medieval village, your daily rituals are non-stop survival mode. You're expected to wake up before sunrise, manage the hearth, that's your stove, oven, heater, and light source. Bake, spin wool, raise kids, cure illnesses, and, oh yes, brew ale. Yes, brewing was a woman's job. Ale was considered a liquid food, safer than water and more vital than wine. You're the village's MVP. And if your husband's off working the Lord's lands, you're also the farmer, the blacksmith, and the disciplinarian. Meanwhile, if you're a man, you better be up early, swinging a scythe, chopping wood, or repairing carts, and doing all of it before your calloused hands go numb. And kids, many adults, by age 6, you're already contributing or being punished. Childhood as we know it didn't exist. Evening falls. And with it comes superstition. The village believes in more than God. There are spirits in the woods, fairies in the shadows, demons in the corners of your home. Daily rituals include protective charms made of iron, crosses above doorways, and prayers whispered before stepping into the dark. Salt lines? Not just for seasoning. They're boundaries to ward off evil. And if your cow stops giving milk, it might be cursed. Time to burn a bit of hair and mutter Latin-sounding syllables with crossed fingers. People didn't just live with fear of death. They lived with fear of the invisible, of sin, spirits, and superstition woven into every action. Not all rituals were practical. Some were personal. You might sew a charm into your child's clothes before they go outside. Whisper a secret prayer before stepping into the forest. Kiss your spouse's hand before lighting the hearth. These small moments, mundane, repetitive, simple, were how people made sense of life and death. They worked hard, struggled harder, and yet they sang songs. They carved little hearts into wooden spoons. They shared stories by firelight, stared at the stars, and named pigs after saints. They found meaning in the rhythm of ritual. In doing the same thing every day, even when tomorrow wasn't guaranteed. The village square is buzzing. No, not with trade, with judgment. Because someone's chicken went missing, and everyone knows Ralph's rooster doesn't just walk away. You shuffle closer, pretending to mind your own business while eavesdropping like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it kinda does. The bailiff stands with his short sword and long beard, looking like he hasn't smiled since birth. Next to him is the accused, already sweating under layers of wool and shame. There's no jury, no lawyers, just gossip, guesses, and the local lord's mood. The punishment could be stocks, could be a fine, could be a public shaming where the entire village gets to throw spoiled turnips at your face. Justice was quick, and not always right. But let's be honest, you kind of live for the drama. Let's talk about the most unpredictable villain in your life, the weather. Your house is made of wattle and daub, aka mud smeared over sticks. Your roof, straw. Your insulation, hope. When it rains, it pours inside. When it snows, your bed sheets freeze. And when the sun shines, your crops might die from drought, right before you do. You live in a constant state of negotiation with the sky. Plant too early, frost kills it. Too late, you starve. And God help you if a hailstorm comes through, because now your roof is a colander and your ceiling leaks straight into your breakfast. Umbrellas? Nope. Raincoats? Try a sack. And when thunder strikes, you drop your tools, cross yourself, and hide your cow, because clearly that's the devil bowling again. You see a child chasing a stick, not with it, as it. Because sticks are toys, sticks, rocks, and the occasional dead rat on a string. Childhood in the medieval village isn't about cartoons or nap time. It's about training. At age 5, you're helping churn butter. Nizar, at 7, you're carrying firewood. At 9, you're married if you're unlucky, and a servant if you're lucky. Education? Unlikely. Unless you're a boy from a rich family, you're not learning to read. You're learning to not burn yourself on the hearth. But there is fun. Games with pebbles. Tag in the fields. Songs about saints and sinners and pigs who ran off with your aunt's shoe. And if your parents can't find you, they just assume you're playing somewhere behind the dung heap. Sweet. Your village isn't quiet. It's alive. With animals. Everywhere. Chickens run underfoot in the cottage. Pigs sleep near the hearth. Dogs aren't pets. They're co-workers. And cats? They're respected, feared, and possibly employed as sorcerer's assistants. You don't name the animals. Okay, you do, but don't get attached. That piglet you call Snuffles? He's Sunday dinner in 6 months. Cows are sacred-ish. Sheep are walking sweaters. Horses are rare and valuable. Unless you're rich, your horse is your own 2 feet. And let's not forget the geese. Loud, angry, winged demons sent to make your life a honking misery. They guard the village better than most people. Someone's getting married today. You're not invited. Because it's not about love. It's about land, family alliances, and surviving the winter. The bride is 14, the groom is 30. That's normal. Uncomfortable, but normal. Marriage in the village isn't sealed with kisses and cake. It's sealed with witnesses, ale, and the blessing of the church. Dowries are exchanged. Maybe a cow, maybe some linens, maybe a sack of barley. Oh, romantic, right? After the ceremony, there's a feast. Not for love, but because any excuse to eat meat is sacred. Then the couple gets shoved into their new home. Yes, shoved. Sometimes literally, the community watches. Because nothing says romance like an audience of 40 muddy peasants clapping while you start your new life. Night falls, again. You'd think things slow down. But fear wakes up after sunset. There's no street lighting, no flashlights. Just a torch if you're lucky. And even then, you're one gust of wind away from total darkness. So villages often had a night watch. Someone walking the lanes, carrying a bell, checking that no one's house is on fire, and that no one's sneaking around stealing chickens or summoning demons. You hear a dog bark in the distance. Was it just the wind? Or is someone creeping through the brush behind the mill? Superstitions crawl into your mind like mice into a grain sack. You toss salt over your shoulder, mutter a prayer, and pretend not to hear the whispers outside your door. Better to stay under the covers. Better not to ask. Just hope the sun rises on time. The truth is, life in the village runs on repetition. Wake, work, pray, eat, fear, sleep, repeat. The rituals give meaning, but also trap you. You know exactly what you'll be doing next Monday, and the Monday after that, and every Monday until you can't lift a tool, can't haul a bucket, can't chew hard bread. Then you pass your duties down to your kids, your grandkids, the next muddy-footed, lice-bitten generation who will swear by the same saints and trip over the same stones. And yet, they laugh, they dance, they sing lullabies into smoky ceilings and whisper stories into pitch-dark nights. It's finally here, market day. The one day a week when your sleepy, mud-caked village turns into a medieval Coachella, minus the music, fashion, and indoor plumbing. You wake up extra early. You scrub your boots, brush straw off your best tunic, and stuff your pockets with whatever goods you're trading today. Maybe a bundle of onions, maybe some hand-woven thread, or maybe a duck that doesn't quack anymore. But no one needs to know that. The center of the village bursts to life. Merchants yelling about the finest salt this side of the marsh. Bakers hawking bread so crusty it could double as armor. Children darting under carts, trying to steal apples without getting cuffed. You try bartering. 3 eggs and a turnip for that candle. No. 2 eggs and my eternal gratitude? Throw in the turnip. Cash doesn't exist here for most. It's trade or nothing. Unless you're rich. Then you wave around a few hammered coins like a king, and everyone rolls their eyes when your back's turned. You eye a traveling juggler performing tricks. He drops a knife. No one claps. You know what's rarer than a full stomach in the winter? A festival. Today is the feast of St. Cuthbert, or was it St. Bridget? Doesn't matter. Any excuse to stop working and roast something is fine by you. The whole village gathers near the green. You feast on fresh bread, turnip stew, dried fish, and, miracle of miracles, meat. Someone slaughtered a pig. You're all suddenly friends. The air is thick with smoke, mead, and slightly burnt onions. The minstrels strike up a tune. People dance, badly, with joy. Old Marta drinks too much ale and tries to sing. Again. Everyone pretends not to mind. Children race with sticks. Teens sneak off behind the trees. Someone's dad trips and blames the wind. You haven't had this much fun since the last Saint's Day, when Father Bertram caught fire while blessing the barley. Ah, memories. Back to business. Let's talk about your body and how medieval villagers thought it worked. You've probably heard of the 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Too much of anyone? Boom, you're sick. Too much blood? You're passionate, maybe a bit crazy. Too much black bile? Clearly depressed, or cursed, or both. You stub your toe? Leeches. You cough up blood? More leeches. You cry a lot? Obviously your humors are unbalanced. Try vomiting. Medical care is theoretical. Everything from astrology to garlic poultices gets thrown at you like some medieval wellness blog. And if all else fails, pray. St. Roche cures plagues. St. Apollonia fixes teeth. St. Lawrence helps burns. There's a saint for everything. Except dignity. That's long gone. In medieval village life, death isn't a distant idea. It's your neighbor, your daily reality, your shadow. You hear about someone dying weekly, usually from something as simple as a scratch, a fever, or childbirth. So daily rituals often include small acts of protection. Prayers whispered at doorways, breadcrumbs left for angels, charm bracelets sewn into sleeves, little wooden crosses carved into furniture. Every villager knows exactly where they want to be buried. It's not morbid, it's planning. Funerals happen fast, within 24 hours. The church bell tolls, the procession moves down muddy roads, and the community gathers. There's grief, but there's also acceptance. Death isn't an interruption. It's the rhythm, and everyone dances to it eventually. You've done your chores, said your prayers, drank your ale. Now what? You hope for heaven, but you fear hell. The medieval mind is soaked in afterlife imagery, paintings, songs, sermons, warning about demons roasting sinners on spits like Sunday dinner. And if you're not holy, but not evil, welcome to purgatory, a divine waiting room with endless spiritual paperwork. That's why so many of your daily rituals have eternal stakes. Crossing yourself when passing a graveyard, lighting candles for the dead, giving alms to lepers, not eating too much on fast days, even if you're starving. Because even sweeping the floor with the wrong attitude could send you on a one-way trip to hellfire. Yay, motivation. Despite it all, the hunger, the cold, the unrelenting fear of the supernatural, there are small rituals that keep you going. You tie herbs above the door because your grandmother did. You sing while churning butter. You carve initials into the beams of your cottage, hoping they'll outlive you. You tell stories. You pass on legends. You raise a toast with mead that's 30% backwash and 70% memories. You don't need comfort. You just need rhythm. And rhythm is life in a world where everything else is unpredictable. School? You wish. Unless you're the child of a merchant, priest, or suspiciously literate goose, you're not getting any real education. For most villagers, school means memorizing the Lord's Prayer and hoping no one asks you to spell your own name. And if you're lucky enough to attend a monastic school, get ready to learn to read Latin, but never understand it. Get whacked with a stick for blinking too slow. Spend 6 years copying the same sentence about Saint Benedict's robe over and over in ink that smells like fermented beetles. Girls, you're learning how to churn butter, catch lice, and not get pregnant before marriage. Spelling? Never heard of it. Grammar? That's for monks and people who die in books. But hey, if you can read, you're basically a wizard. Now let's say you get a brilliant idea. I'm leaving this village. Why? Maybe you're chasing opportunity. Maybe you've been accused of stealing that goose again. Doesn't matter. Here's what you're up against. No maps. You ask strangers who only point and shrug. No proper roads, just dirt paths so muddy they qualify as lakes. No GPS, just the sun, the stars, and your own confused guesses. And don't even think about traveling at night. There are no inns. There are robbers. There are wolves. There are people who think outsiders are either thieves, devils, or both. You might stop at a wayfarer's cross and say a prayer. You might sleep in a hayloft if a kind farmer lets you. Or you might get eaten by pigs in a ditch, and no one will ever know what happened. So yeah, most people stay home. You think farming's hard? Let's explore the bottom shelf of medieval employment. Row 1, gong farmer. You shovel human waste out of cesspits and haul it out of town. You're paid well, probably because no one wants to talk to you, ever. 2, leech collector. You wade into swamps, let leeches attach to your legs, then pluck them off and sell them to doctors. Side effects: blood loss, fainting, regret. 3, sin eater. A real job. You eat bread and drink ale over a dead body, symbolically absorbing their sins. You're feared, pitied, and definitely not invited to dinner parties. Do more. Rat catcher. You live with vermin. You get bitten. You sometimes wear a cape made of dead rats. Fashion? Technically. 5, tooth drawer. Ew, not a dentist, just a guy with pliers and a strong stomach. No anesthesia, no hygiene, just open wide and scream into this towel. Congratulations. Suddenly being a humble turnip farmer doesn't sound so bad. You've worked. You've prayed. You've avoided disease and your angry neighbor. Now what? Nothing. Welcome to medieval boredom. There's no Netflix, no books, no phone to scroll until your thumbs hurt. You've got the same 3 folk songs. Gossip you already know. A fire to stare at. And maybe, if you're lucky, a wooden board game with half the pieces missing. So what do villagers do? They tell stories. Weird stories. Terrifying stories. About cursed wells, haunted crossroads, and that one time someone saw a flaming chicken in the graveyard. Some people carve little wooden figures. Some people spin wool. Some just sit and think about food they'll never eat. And when night really falls, you try to sleep. Or at least stay still enough not to hear scratching in the walls. It's probably rats, or spirits, or your imagination slowly unraveling. You know what fills the silence? Rumors. Stories of distant lands, whispers of miracles, dreams of cities made of gold and saints who walk through fire. You hear about a man in a castle who drinks wine from a golden shoe, a village where bread grows on trees, a woman who cured plague by spitting on a toad, and you believe some of it. Because when your whole world is 6 muddy streets and a leaky thatch roof, anything sounds possible. You dream of escaping, of becoming someone new, of living somewhere where no one remembers the time you accidentally kicked the bishop's donkey. But morning always comes. And with it, more wood to chop, more oats to stir, more pigs to chase. The sun is setting. Not in some poetic, cinematic way, but in a practical, you better get inside before the wolves start pacing kind of way. By now the chores are done. The tools are back on their hooks. The fire is going. Not a roaring blaze, just a modest glow to keep the chill from your bones and the shadows from your thoughts. You sit down on a wooden bench worn smooth from generations. Someone hands you a cup of weak ale, or maybe a warm broth if your goat finally gave in and produced something drinkable. The air smells of wood smoke, hay, and old onions. This is when life gets soft. Not easier, just slower. You lean back, shoulders aching, and listen. The cottage isn't quiet, not exactly. It has its own rhythm. The thump-thump of dough being kneaded on a heavy table. The flicker and crackle of the hearth spitting out sparks like it's talking to itself. The whispered conversations in the corner, half gossip, half prayer. A child clumsily singing a folk song with lyrics that make no sense and never did. Someone sharpens a blade by the fire. Someone else drowsily mends a hole in a stocking, the needle flashing in the lamplight. And you just exist, present, full of bread and beans. Maybe a little sleepy. Maybe wrapped in a wool cloak that still smells faintly of the sheep it came from. It's not excitement. It's not grand, but it's warm. And in a world that often felt cold and unpredictable, warmth was everything. Here's the thing. Medieval villagers didn't need constant conversation. There's comfort in silence when you trust the people around you. You nod to your father as he sets down a worn mug. Your sister wraps a sleeping toddler in a blanket made of patches and prayers. Your grandmother hums a tune no one remembers the words to, and maybe no one ever knew them in the first place. No one's asking questions. No one's demanding answers. Everyone just is. If someone tells a story, it's usually an old one. A legend of the forest spirits, or the tale of the dancing stag seen only on Midsummer's Eve. You've heard it 100 times. But tonight, you still listen. Because the way your uncle tells it, with his crooked grin and dramatic pauses, it feels new again. And besides, the shadows seem to lean in when he speaks, like they're listening too. Someone saved the last piece of cheese for you. Someone fixed your shoe without being asked. Someone stirred the stew just long enough that it didn't burn. These are the little things, the invisible things, the acts of love and cooperation that never make it into songs or carvings, but kept villages alive. The world outside is hard. Inside, it's held together by small kindnesses and quiet rituals. You place a sprig of dried lavender by your sleeping mat. Superstition, maybe, but it smells nice. Your mother traces a cross on your forehead before you sleep, not because she's sure it works, but because she hopes it might. The cat curls up at your feet, a living stone that purrs when the wind howls. You lie down on straw and fabric stuffed with wool. It's not soft, but it's yours. The fire's almost out. You hear the wind sneak between the cracks in the walls. The stars outside glitter like distant, untouchable dreams. You think of that cart driver who said he saw the sea once. The fair in the next town, where they say a man juggles knives blindfolded. The boy who left to become a monk and never wrote back. That girl in the village over who wears red ribbons in her hair and never looks down when she speaks. You don't dream of castles. You dream of full bellies, safe births, warm winters, of nothing bad happening for a little while. And that's enough. Time isn't measured in minutes here. There are no watches, no glowing phones, no buzzing alarms. Instead, you measure time in mud, in frost, in the feel of the wind against your neck. In the village, the year is a circle. Spring is the breath in, summer, the heartbeat, autumn, the slow exhale. Winter. Winter is when the world holds its breath and hopes it survives. Every season changes everything. Spring doesn't just arrive, it erupts. You feel it in your bones before the snow fully melts. The wind doesn't bite as hard. The chickens start laying again, and the trees get cocky, throwing out buds like confetti. You, muddy to the knees, dig your hands into soil like it's the only magic left in the world. The ground is soft, wet, smells like life returning from the dead. You help plant turnips, onions, barley. You pray for good rains and no late frost. You don't talk about last year's failed harvest. And then comes May Day. Everyone bathes. Yes, even your uncle. Girls plait ribbons into their hair. Boys try not to act like they're watching. They are. There's dancing, drinking, maybe even kissing behind the bakehouse if you're lucky and the Reeve isn't watching. You're barefoot, flower-crowned, and half-drunk on air and youth. The whole village pretends, just for one day, that life will be easy now. Summer is not for the lazy. The fields demand everything. Sunburnt backs, sore hands, calluses in strange places. You wake with the sun and collapse after dark. The wheat must be watched, weeded, whispered to. The cows are moody, the goats escape, and someone's always getting kicked. You sweat through your only decent tunic. You drink from streams. You chase chickens out of your mother's kitchen again. But it's also lovely. The air is golden. Berries grow wild near the edge of the forest. And sometimes on a long day, you sit under a tree and let your thoughts wander to the stars, to stories, to someone's smile. There are summer fairs too. Gestures, games, cheap trinkets that feel priceless in your palm. Maybe you buy a ribbon. Maybe you lose it an hour later. Maybe you don't care. You notice the change when you wake up and see your breath. Suddenly the air has teeth again. It's harvest time. Everyone works harder than they have all year because this is what keeps you alive when the snow comes. Grain is stacked, root vegetables packed in cool cellars, meat salted and smoked. The village smells like smoke and spice and something old dying with dignity. Children collect fallen apples and roast them over open flames. You sneak a bite, still warm, syrup sweet, with just a hint of ash. At night, there are long conversations, memories shared in whispers, old ghost stories told by candlelight. Not for fun, for remembrance. And if you're lucky, there's a harvest feast. Laughter, music, bread as soft as clouds. You look around and hope these faces will still be here come spring. Winter in the village is not festive. It's a trial. Snow buries the fields. Rats chew through what little's left. You eat more broth than bread and more memories than meat. The wind whistles through the cracks in your walls. Your nose is always cold, your socks always damp. And yet, you endure. Days are short, but the nights are long stories. You learn songs, riddles, and proverbs that have outlived kings. You sew, mend, carve, hum. And then there's Yuletide. It's not about presents, it's about light. Candles in windows, garlands on the door. A bit of honey dripped into your cup just because you made it this far. You laugh more, cry less. Because in winter, community is your only fire. And then it starts over. The cycle doesn't stop. You grow older. The seasons blur. You forget how many times you've done this. But some part of you, deep in your soul or your stomach, knows you are part of something ancient, something earthy, something bigger than kings or wars or books. A rhythm of rain and sun, birth and burial, feast and famine. A life where meaning isn't written in letters but carved into the land itself. You're not rich. You're not remembered. But you live. And that's no small thing. No one teaches you how to fall in love in a medieval village. There's no TikTok therapists, no dating apps. There's the miller's daughter, the carpenter's boy, and a handful of cousins you're legally not supposed to flirt with. But, well, let's just say the church is always a little behind. Your heart doesn't flutter at poetry. It stumbles when someone shares their last piece of bread or covers the bucket for you when your turn at the well was missed. That's romance here. You notice someone, not because they're stunning, but because they know how to stack firewood like a god, or they can skin a rabbit in 12 seconds flat. That's hot, and the moment it starts, it's usually nothing. A look, a longer than necessary pause while passing a jug. But suddenly the village feels smaller, the air heavier. You think of them while churning butter. And now churning butter has feelings. Forget candlelit dinners. The flirting game here is built on subtle codes, timing, and proximity. He helps you fix your thatch roof. You hand her a turnip you carved a smile into. She laughs. You die a little inside, but in a good way. At the annual fair, there's dancing. You don't need rhythm, just guts. You step in, 2 hands touching briefly, and boom. Electricity, 14th century style. If your fingers linger a second too long, the whole village notices. The blacksmith winks. So, your mother coughs so loudly it echoes off the barn. There's gossip before the next dawn. Let's say it gets serious. You start walking out with each other. Literally. Walking out of church, out of the fields, in plain sight. Supervised, of course. You bring her cheese. She offers you apples from her family's orchard. In this world, food is the ultimate love language. If she lets you taste something before the rest of her family, you're in. But remember, marriage isn't always about love. Sometimes it's arranged, negotiated like a business deal over mead. You might love someone else, but your parents love the dowry more. And you stay quiet. Maybe dream about what could have been when no one's listening. Still, sometimes it works. 2 people somehow find affection inside an arrangement. And that's real too. The village wedding is part carnival, part chaos. It's not about the bride's dress, it's borrowed. Or the cake, there isn't one. It's about everyone drinking just enough to forget winter's coming. There's dancing, someone falls in a trough. An uncle fights a goose again. It's tradition. At some point, the couple is escorted, to their new sleeping space. With a priest, a witness. Sometimes even a midwife watching to ensure the union is, well, sealed. Yeah, awkward. But after the public performance fades, it's just 2 people in a dark room, sharing stories, silence, warmth, trying to figure out what this whole forever thing actually means. Love isn't sweet poems and flowers every day. Sometimes it's waking up early to fetch water because she's sick. Sometimes it's not saying a word, but handing him a warm bowl of soup after a long day in the field. There are arguments, storms of silence, but there's also laughter, even when teeth are missing. You see couples who've been together 30, 40 seasons. Their fingers knotted together like old tree roots. They grumble more than talk. But when one's away, the other always checks the window. It's not Instagram love. It's real, raw, stubborn affection forged by hardship and habit. Not every romance is approved. Sometimes love grows in the shadows, between people promised to others, or from different manners, even different stations. You meet them by the stream. You memorize the sound of their footsteps in the dark. You lie to everyone but your heart. The edge of the forest becomes sacred ground, where kisses bloom in secret. where your heart races not from love, but from the risk of it. There are consequences if you're caught, public shaming, fines, sometimes worse. But people take that risk because some love burns too hot to be buried under rules and reputations. Not every story ends in marriage. Not every love lasts, but every heart in the village has known it. Even the gruffest old shepherd once carved initials into a tree. Sometimes it ends in heartbreak. Sometimes in shared bread and laughter through storms. Sometimes in a pair of eyes that say, "I see you," without words. And sometimes that's enough. You think the day was hard? Try surviving the night in a medieval village. As soon as the sun dips, shadows creep in like unwanted guests. The villagers don't just lock their doors, they sprinkle salt on the windowsill, hang bits of iron above the threshold, and whisper prayers that aren't in any Bible. Because night isn't just cold. It's alive, with things. Things that don't have names. Things that do. Things that used to be people, and maybe still are. There's always her. She lives on the edge of the village near the woods. She talks to cats, grows herbs that smell too strong, knows what to do when a baby won't stop crying or a man falls ill from bad air. You call her wise woman if she saves your cow. You call her witch if your crops fail. She has no trial, only rumors. No broomstick, just a kettle and knowledge passed down mother to daughter. If you visit her, you don't tell anyone. And if someone finds out, you better hope that next full moon doesn't bring blight or blood. You're religious, of course. Everyone is, because not believing is dangerous. There's a tiny shrine in your cottage, a saint's figure carved from bone. Maybe Saint Margaret to protect childbirth. Maybe Saint Christopher so your donkey doesn't drop dead. But right next to it, a pouch of dried mouse bones to ward off nosebleeds. A carved wooden face nailed to the beam to scare away the screaming woman. Don't laugh. This mix of holy and haunted is normal. The priest thunders about sin, but even he carries a charm in his robes. You don't need horror stories. You have the devil. And he's busy. Sometimes he rides through the village disguised as a nobleman. Sometimes he sits on a fence post, grinning with goat's eyes. Sometimes he's just a voice, in your head, telling you to drink, to steal, to strike. You confess your sins and hope the priest says the right words. But if your cow dies, if your baby's born twisted, if your dreams feel too heavy with fire and teeth, you start to wonder, was it you or something in the house? You sleep with garlic under your bed, just in case. Magic isn't fantasy, it's practical. If your leg breaks, you don't go to a doctor. You go to the bone man. He smells like vinegar and has shaky hands, but he knows things. A toothache? You chew on a clove, but only after chanting the words to Saint Apollonia. A fever? You tie a red string around your ankle and sleep with a dead spider under your tongue. Sounds wild? So does surviving on porridge and curses, but here we are. And fairies, don't get us started. You leave out milk for them. You don't cut the old tree near the brook. You never thank them aloud. That's how you lose your shadow. They say, on certain nights they march. Not human, not ghost. Something between. The wild hunt, the night parade. A procession of ancient spirits. Some headless, some hollow, some with eyes too big and teeth too small. You don't look out the window if you hear drums. You don't answer your door, even if it sounds like your mother calling. Because if you see them, they see you. And the next morning, your footprints lead into the woods and never back out. When someone dies, it's not the end. You close the windows, you stop the clocks. You cover mirrors so the soul doesn't get confused and stay behind. And if the body doesn't rot right, if animals avoid it, if someone hears the deceased whispering from the rafters, you dig them up. You burn their hair. You turn their skull to face the earth. Because the dead can come back. And not like in the bedtime stories. They come back cold, hungry, wrong. You wake up, Your throat is sore. You've got chills. You might be coming down with something. Spoiler, you are. And in medieval times, that's about as close to a death prophecy as it gets. There's no doctor, no antibiotics, no hot soup and Netflix. There's your neighbor with a bag of herbs, a wet rag, and possibly a dead toad nailed to her door for luck. You can't Google your symptoms. You go straight to praying or panicking. Because back then, even a sniffle could turn into something that makes your whole family dig a pit behind the barn. Your first stop isn't a hospital. It's the herb wife. She's the woman who helped deliver your cousin's twins, made your uncle's rash go away, and probably cursed your neighbor's goat once. Her cottage smells like smoke and crushed roots. She keeps dried plants strung from the ceiling and potions in reused ale bottles. You describe your symptoms. She nods like she understands and then gives you crushed sage in vinegar, something that smells like feet, and advice like, don't eat eels until next moon. Is it helpful? No idea, but she means well. If you're lucky, a traveling physician shows up. He's wearing robes, has a big book, and talks about humors. Yes, humors. According to medieval medicine, your body is made up of 4 fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. If you're sick, one of these is out of balance. So what's the solution? Obviously, won't bleed you, make you vomit, or give you a laxative strong enough to evacuate your soul. Because nothing says recovery like pooping out your last ounce of will to live. Let's say it's worse than a fever, maybe a wound, an infection, a boil the size of a rat's skull. It's time for the surgeon. He's not a doctor. He's more like a blacksmith with a knife. His tools are kept in a bag he never washes. His apron is red for reasons. No anesthesia. Just a leather strap to bite and someone to hold your legs. If they're amputating, they'll use a saw. If they're lancing something, pray they don't hit bone. An infection? Oh, sweetheart, that's just part of the process. Now, childbirth. You're in a smoky cottage, knees drawn up, surrounded by women. The midwife knows what she's doing, but if anything goes wrong, there's no backup. No C-section, no sterile gloves. Oh, just prayer, hot cloths, and herbal wine that burns all the way down. She mutters a blessing, ties a charm around your wrist, and wipes your brow. It's painful, screaming painful. But she's calm, strong, and if you survive, and your baby does, you'll name your first goat after her. Because in a world ruled by men and war, the midwife is the one who brings life and keeps you alive when all the odds are stacked against you. And then there's that sickness, the one with black spots, the one that kills in days, the one that made villages go silent. Yes, the plague. No one knows what causes it. Some blame God. Some blame the stars. Some blame the air, or Jews, or foreigners, or cats. And everyone is wrong. People burn herbs, ring bells, whip themselves in the street. The rich flee the cities. The poor die in the streets. The priests dig holes and pray into them. If someone gets sick, you wall them in. If you get sick, you get left behind. But somehow not all is doom and gloom. Because they had hope. They believed in the healing of time, of nature, of touch. They wrapped wounds in honey, made salves from yarrow, burned juniper for good air. They wrote healing prayers into bread and fed it to the sick. They lit candles for saints. They whispered into herbs before crushing them. And sometimes, it worked. Whether it was placebo, faith, or just luck, a fever broke. A child laughed again. A wound closed. A woman gave birth to twins and didn't die. And when that happened, they rang the church bells like it was Christmas. You're walking back from the village well when you see them. Across the square, dirty tunic, straw in their hair, no shoes. They're beautiful. You steal a glance. They nod. Congratulations, you're now 90% of the way toward marriage. Because in a medieval village, options are limited. You've got maybe 20 people your age, tops. Most of them are cousins. So if someone catches your eye and doesn't smell like a dying badger, that's the medieval version of a soulmate. But don't expect candlelit dinners or love letters. Expect supervised conversation. Dating, medieval style, means this. You ask your father to talk to her father. You meet in the kitchen with 5 people watching and one of them churning butter. If you're a guy, you try to show off. I have 3 goats, my own axe, and a patch of turnips. If you're a girl, you try not to laugh at his tunic. Physical affection? Maybe a brief handshake if you're rebels. Most of the wooing happens through gifts. A carved spoon, a woven ribbon, a single egg, still warm from the coop. It's less Netflix and chill, more sunset and barley. If love blooms and no parents object, and no one else claims the same person via blood feud, you get a wedding. Not a royal gold thread, princess and lace wedding. A hay in your shoe, sweat under your arms. Did anyone bring the priest? Wedding. Weddings often happened in the church porch, not even inside. It's quick, it's cold, it's public. The priest mumbles the Latin. Everyone watches. You exchange tokens, not rings, maybe a bit of silver or even a belt buckle. Then you walk home, and the whole village follows. Now it's feast time. Here's where things loosen up. After the vows, you get a party. And for peasants, that means everything from roast pig if you're rich, pigeon stew if you're not, turnip pie if it's Tuesday. There's dancing, music, mead, and mildly aggressive toasts. If you're lucky, a wandering minstrel shows up. If you're unlucky, your cousin sings that weird song about sheep again. Old women whisper about babies. Kids steal bits of bread. A chicken might get involved in the dancing. No one's sure why. And by sundown, someone's passed out in a hay cart with a smile on their face. Here's the uncomfortable part. After the feast, everyone expects you to consummate the marriage. Some families even witnessed it. Yep, witnessed. Not watched exactly, just verified. Like customs officers of awkwardness. You and your new spouse lie down in your tiny cottage, still smelling of smoke and stew. No silk sheets, no privacy. Just a straw bed, a wool blanket, and the sound of your uncle snoring in the next room. But hey, it's your first night as husband and wife. And that counts for something. Married life is simple. Wake up, feed the animals, tend the fields, raise the kids, try not to die. Romance fades into routine. But sometimes there's a moment, a glance across the table, a warm bowl of soup saved just for you, a laugh during chores that reminds you it's not about grand gestures. It's about having someone who helps dig your latrine in winter. Someone who shares their last bite of salted pork. Someone who knows how to make your day better with just a quiet look. And that's real love, medieval style. You wake up to the scent of smoke, but it's not your roof this time. It's Beltane, or midsummer, or maybe it's Michaelmas. You're not sure because calendars are for monks, and your time is measured in harvests and saints' days. But you do know this. The bonfire is already lit, and tonight, nobody's going to bed early. Seasonal festivals in medieval villages were everything. Not just days off, they were emotional resets, a break from the mud and the manure. And just sometimes, an excuse to drink yourself sideways and blame it on tradition. Let's start with May Day. The snow is gone, the lambs are wobbling around like fluffy idiots, and nature is feeling itself. So naturally, so is the village. The maypole rises in the square, a tall, slightly awkward symbol of fertility. Yes, it's exactly what you think it is. You and the other villagers grab ribbons and start dancing in spirals. If you don't trip and break your nose, you're doing great. Some folks leap over fires, others disappear into the woods to pick flowers. Spoiler, they're not picking flowers. Even the priest looks the other way. It's spring, baby. Get weird. Fast forward to Midsummer's Eve, the shortest night and arguably the strangest. Villagers build giant wheels of straw, set them on fire, roll them downhill. If the wheel keeps burning as it rolls, the crops will be good. If it crashes into a cow, Well, there goes your cheese supply. You gather wild herbs, believed to hold magic this night. You place St. John's wort under your pillow to dream of your future spouse. And just before midnight, you join hands and jump over the fire with someone special. Why? Because it's fun. And because you believe, deep down, that fire cleanses the soul, just like the river does. If the river wasn't full of ducks and dead frogs, when autumn rolls in, it's harvest time. And that means two things. 1, you eat like a king for once. 2, you sell everything else to pay taxes and tithes. The village holds a harvest fair, a chaotic, loud, muddy delight. Vendors shout about onions and wool. Jugglers distract your children. A man in a fox mask offers you fortune ale, which is definitely just ale with herbs and bad intentions. There's music, pig wrestling, and a guy on stilts who keeps falling over. The priest blesses the food. The reeve counts the grain. And you? You grab a meat pie, lean against a fence, and feel, for one sweet moment, like life is full, warm, and just a little bit magical. Then comes winter solstice, the longest night. Snow crunches beneath your feet. Candles flicker behind wooden shutters. You and your neighbors gather for Yule, which predates Christianity, but no one's arguing. It's cold, and they'll take any excuse to feast. You burn a Yule log, carved with charms and prayers. You tell ghost stories because the veil is thin, and Aunt Agnes swears she saw a phantom pig last year. There's spiced ale, bread with dried berries, and maybe even a gift, usually something like carved buttons, or socks that don't match. Children fall asleep on sheepskins. You sip something warm. Outside, the wind moans like it's forgotten your name. And you feel it, that ancient, powerful comfort. The dark may rule for now, but the light will return. Season after season, year after year, your village celebrates, mourns, dances, eats, prays, and laughs together. The rituals change slightly. The faces grow older. But the rhythm remains. Because in a world where so much is uncertain, plague, weather, war, the rituals are your anchors. They mark time. They bring joy. They remind you who you are. A villager, a dancer, a cook, a lover. A speck of dust in history, but one that laughed and leapt over fire and loved life with muddy boots and a mouthful of pie. So there you are. The festival fires have died down, the pies are gone, and the stars, unpolluted, bold, and ancient, stretch across the night sky. You curl up by the hearth, wool blanket wrapped around your shoulders, the smell of wood smoke clinging to your clothes. And for a moment, you get it. Why they danced, why they feasted, why they believed. Because life was hard, gritty, short, cold. But it was also full of rhythm, rituals, and the warmth of community. We might not jump over bonfires today, at least not without a waiver. But we still crave the same things: connection, celebration, and something to believe in when the nights get long. So next time you light a candle, cook a meal with friends, or gather for a holiday, remember, you're not so different from that barefoot peasant swaying beside the maypole or laughing over a cup of cider. You're part of a very old, very human story. If this journey made you smile, think, or just feel a little warmer inside, hit that like button, share it with a fellow time traveler, and tell me in the comments which medieval ritual you totally join or absolutely avoid. And hey, until our next adventure, stay curious, stay cozy, and may your harvest always be just a little more than enough. Good night, traveler. And dream deeply, the past isn't as far away as you think.